I'm a Busy Guy show. My name is Vince LoCASCIO, and I'm a busy guy. I have another busy guy here today, John Conenna. He's with Venus Travel. John, welcome to the show.
Vince, pleasure to be here.
Nice to have you here. John is the president of Venus Travel, a very busy guy. And tell us about the origin of Venus Travel.
Well, Venus Travel actually has been around since 1968, and the world is our specialty is our slogan, and it all came about in '68 through the efforts of my father, Vincenzo Conenna.
Okay, he came here in 1948 from Italy to America?
Yes, '48 he arrived here. He told me it took him 2 days to get here, but in 1948 he did arrive and went right to work in travel and banking as soon as he got off the plane at that time at Midway Airport.
Okay. And where was his, you say he was in banking first?
Yeah,
travel?
he worked for Mid-City National Bank of Chicago, which is at Madison and Halsted. He was there from about, I'd say, 52 till 68, till he opened up the Venus Travel and had a small office where he did taxes and travel. He farmed out travel to other travel agencies that were in the city at that time. And a lot of the Italian community did come to him for different situations besides taxes, travel, legal Italian documents. So he was pretty well renowned in those areas.
And versed in both languages.
Oh, God, yes. He went to Wells High School, even when he was 20 years old, and then is a graduate of Northwestern University, which always amazed me about my father. He did night school during these early years of his marriage. So, Vincenzo, yes.
So then you came into the picture, as far as the business, running errands and stuff, delivering brochures?
Yeah, that happens in '77. I come around after school. I was going to Holy Cross High School in River Grove, and in 1977 I decided that, okay, I'm going to take a crack at this, and he had me delivering airline tickets, getting passports, going to different consulates, getting visas, and it was the beginning of something that at first I didn't know if I wanted to do it, but, you know.
But so you went to Holy Cross, but then you went to Loyola and got a degree in
broadcast journalism, right.
Okay, so that's what you're going to do when you grow up?
Yeah, I thought I was going to do that, Vince, and 1977, I always tell people, was the summer I never left Venus Travel, because I kept telling my mom, I'm not going to do this forever, and now it's 35 years later.
The time flies, huh?
Oh, yes, it has flown by a lot.
Well, I'm sure, your dad has seen many more, but let's talk briefly about the changes that he has seen and some along the way with you. Everything's computerized now, but there used to be books?
Yes, it was called OAGs. They were the official airline guides. And back in those days, if you took a trip, you would designate a time. They would call us on the phone. If there was a flight to Los Angeles, say you and your family were leaving, and we would then take the information down and then call the airline to see if it was available. The good thing about those days, there was only one fare, and hopefully that fare was available so I could send the LoCASCIO family on a trip, call back, write the ticket out manually instead of being on a computer. And totally different process. One ticket could take 1 hour sometimes in a day, because you could come back to me then and say, well, John, no, my wife has decided that she wants to leave at 4:30 instead of 3. So again, this is why this process was a little bit antique when I go to think about it now in comparison to today.
So the only options you had was to go to a travel agency or right to the airport to buy a ticket.
Exactly, and that was the distribution of the time, was the travel agent, and it alleviated a lot of airline employees, because a lot of times I would always hear, even in those days, that the lines were tied up in the 70s because of people calling the airline, where the travel agent was, if you had a travel agent and you knew you can call them from the hours of 9 to 5, those were the hours.
That was your connection.
That was the connection, exactly.
And I don't want to stand it too long, but how often was that book changed? How often
that book changed once a month. Prices didn't change that much until 1980. When Reagan's era of deregulation came into play, that's when the market changed. The 80s were a tough time. It deregulated the market. If you went to Florida in the 70s, it was always about $198 to $200. when the 80s arrived, now the competition got fiercer. You had low-cost carriers coming in like Southwest, Republic Airlines, and the Jet Americas of the world, and put a crimp on the industry. So that's when the deregulation came into play.
Well, we talked about earlier about deregulation. I mean, there used to be a time, I guess, there were air routes that only certain companies would own and buy. Like only, say, just an example, United could fly to New York.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, United and American, let's use them as the example, were the ones going to New York, Philadelphia. They had pretty much the East Coast and a lot of the West Coast. Then you had airlines like Delta and Eastern that went to Florida. And then you had carriers like TWA that went to St. Louis in Europe. And then, of course, you had your big European airlines like Pan American, British Airways, Alitalia, that had their own routes into their own countries. The British Air was going into the London Heathrow area, Alitalia going to Rome and other cities and different regions of Italy. And of course, Swiss Air would go to Switzerland. So everybody had their own niche. And now it's
just wide open.
Now it's a wide open thing. Right, exactly.
I'll salute you many times for the staying power that your family business has had as a small business, but there's been a lot of things that you've gone up against, things that have changed, like price changes from everything from fuel pricing to baggage charge.
Right.
That gets built into the ticket pricing.
Right. The price nowadays in comparison to, let's say, 1977, 1980 now is a huge change. Every day it could change. I could quote you something this afternoon, and tomorrow it could go up $30, $40, and I've had people call me and say, well, you told me it was $300 yesterday. Why is it $330 today? Thinking that I'm making the $30. And it's almost become like a stock market. You know, where it's a constant.
I was going to say that.
Right.
It changes just like the stock market. Along with other obstacles, commission reductions have changed. I mean, because, I'll get to it, but the internet, people can now just click, and be buying their own tickets, which we'll talk about the advantages and disadvantages.
Sure.
But that's had to affect your commissions coming in as well.
It happened in 1996. It actually starts with Delta Airlines, not to put the blame on anyone, and they had capped us at 50 on a round trip and 25 on a one-way. And I still remember my father telling me that day, and he had a little bit of his accent. He says, "We will not use Delta Airlines again." When I came in Monday morning, Vince, they had all followed suit and stopped paying commission in 96. And that was the beginning of the end of that distribution. They already had foreseen the future with the internet.
Okay, and speaking of that, there still is a software, not a software, but a program that only agents have, which is what, Apollo it's called?
Apollo and Sabre, yes. And Apollo we use in our office exclusively, which is really kind of coincides with United Airlines, and Sabre coincides with American Airlines. And Apollo is very up to date, and it does still have a major impact for agents, and it does match a lot of the internet fares. Like I have said to many people, the internet is just a tool. It cannot be like the agent where it tells you everything. The Apollo does give you baggage fees. It tells you about the weight distribution. It tells you when a flight is delayed. Where an internet agency still, you book it, but still will not give you that information. They're coming out with apps on phones where they alert you of a flight delay, a cancellation, but for the most part, the Apollo and Sabre are still very modern for its time.
Well, I mean, after doing my homework and research today, reading about the travel industry, there is things that it's going to be more personalized going to you as opposed to a guy. There was an example of a guy clicking on, yippee, I got my 4 tickets for my family, but then he gets there, he doesn't know he's going to pay for baggage, he doesn't know he's going to pay $7 for a blanket, on and on, the fees.
Right.
And that's the kind of thing you're telling people.
Yeah, we are pretty well adversed in telling people, okay, you're going to pay $25 for the first bag, $35 for the second bag. We warn them to put the liquids in a baggies bag, so you can, like a Ziploc bag, so you want to show them. We tell them even now the charges for a carry-on. Just read something last month where Spirit Airlines now is charging $100 just for a checked bag in comparison to the other carriers. Oh. So, yeah, have to be pretty much up to date, and we do put that on all our documentation. But again, we've almost made ourselves a 24-hour agent. Call us. You're at the airport, something happens, call us. You're at the destination, something goes wrong at the hotel, call us. We have made ourselves available through all the means of the new technology.
And when you say all this, you mean, I know it's specific that that's what Venus Travel is doing, but just the travel agent industry itself is more of a, is it just a personalized thing?
I have promoted the travel agent industry because of the fact I think people should still think about going to the professional, because in the long run, maybe they see that fare for $100 on Spirit, but in the long run, they don't see, like you had said, Vince, what's ahead when they get to that airport from the baggage to the can of potato chips.
Right, it's a professional. I mean, that's why I always say, you got a problem with electricity, you call an electrician. You don't call a plumber.
Right,
You
exactly. And that's been my hope with the modern era, as we would call it. Yes, thank you.
Obviously, one of the biggest and unfortunate things that took place was 9/11, which brought on all these security measures. I know, just to go through a few, which we'll also talk about later, is John Conenna's travel tips that are on your Facebook page. But tell me the examples about names matching exactly to your ticket.
Yeah, Vince, as far back as I can remember, 20 years ago, if I was going to Florida tomorrow, 20 years ago, I could have gave you my ticket, and you could have went as John Conenna. Now, to do that now, it's impossible. I've had people still call me to this day, well, what do you mean? Well, now, of course, the name has to be spelled out, Vincent LoCASCIO, and if you have a middle name, it has to be spelled out. I cannot put Vincent Lawrence because that is not your name, and you will be stopped. You will be fined. I receive a fine, and the birth date has to be correct. If you have a middle name, I have to know that. Everything has to match, and they are really becoming sticklers. But again, I think it's for the good with the TSA because of all the damage that 9/11 did to our country.
And you're telling people that ahead of time when they're in your office or on the...
Yes, we give them the warning. As much as they don't want to hear it, Vince, I do give them that warning all the time.
Now, do you network with other agents or associations?
Yes, we have been part of a consortium since 1980 called Travel Savers. It's a consortium out of New York that pretty much tells us who's on the up and up in the way of tour companies, wholesalers. We've been known to be specialists to Europe and the Caribbean and Mexico. And there are agencies in Chicago that we work with us. And sometimes I don't do a lot of the Asian market, and I will use a lot of the corporate travel agencies downtown for that market.
Nice. And you have the unfortunate task of visiting some of these destinations?
Yes, very unfortunate. One of them, of course, has been Italy. I've always been to my father's region. I haven't seen the whole.
Which is?
It is the region of Puglia, and my father and my mother were from Mola di Bari. Saw this town for about 8 times. There's not much to it. I kind of always compare it to Norwich, Illinois, where I was born. But yes, been there 8 times.
Downtown Norwich, not the
downtown Norwich, right? That's a big strip. And I've been. My favorite one is Mexico. And then, of course, I always try to frequent the Hawaii because it is a big thing for honeymooners. So I want to be on the up and up so I can tell people what I'm selling.
Okay. A lot of times a news story will take place either to the positive or to the negative of, to the travel industry or to a destination. And to use an example, the incident that took place in Italy on that cruise.
Yes.
I'm sure that hurt the cruise industry for a while. I'm sure it's all, back to what it should be. But then on the positive note, too, if some celebrity visits somewhere, it's on the news, everybody has to go there then?
Right. Like I ran into an agent years ago at a travel show that, Oprah Winfrey, who was popular here in Chicago, an agent downtown, told me that if she went to Cabo San Lucas, that was the market. And she brought up on her show that she stayed at a hotel in Cabo, I think a hotel called the One and Only Pamela. That hotel, like overnight, had the success just from Miss Winfrey's comments. So you are correct. The downfall of the cruise there for a while was all the jokes and everything that came out of what the captain was doing at that time, which was very unfortunate because, of course, there was a lot of damage and a lot of sorrow from that trip too. But
Well, what about Sammy Hagar's place?
that's in the.
In Cabo
Oh yes, very
DePaul,
yeah,
Cabo
right,
Wabo?
right, and that was very popular also. Right, right.
Back to, it's a big investment for a lot of people, a trip like this. So, I mean, and once again, I said, I learned a lot today by, studying about your industry. But it is a big investment. Somebody like for a honeymoon, people that have retired and they save, a lot of them for a lifetime, we're going to take our big trip to Europe and stuff. They're better off coming to you as opposed to click, click, click. And
I would hope so, because over the years, I, of course, cannot visit every destination, but over the years, I've developed a niche where, we have dealt with so many different hotels and different airlines where I can recommend something and be sure and positive that if the LoCASCIO family is going on a trip and they're saying Mexico or Italy, I always use the line, I will guarantee this 100% that you'll come back and tell me this is great. A lot of times the failure comes in when somebody sees something and they click on something and they say, oh my God, it's a 2-star hotel, but it looks great. And they book it, I book it to them, and I always do kind of say sometimes when I see that situation, I haven't been right 100%, but I'll say, I don't want to be responsible for this. And a lot of times it becomes the disaster because they'll get there, they'll call me, oh my God, the room is dirty. Oh my God, this is not an ocean view, it's a view of a neighborhood in Chicago that we won't mention. But yes, there have been some disasters just because of poor planning.
okay, not everybody likes to fly. So say a guy walks in and says, you know what, I'm driving somewhere. I'm driving to a place in Florida. I'm taking a train to a place in Florida. How can you help him? When he
Especially I'll ask them questions. What part of Florida? Let's say it's the Tampa, Sarasota area, and I'll say, I like to golf. And then I'll say, okay, I can put you in a resort near a certain area. I could even get you your green fees, your tea times. And then he'll say to me, I'll need a couple days to unwind with my wife and my children. Do you have anything, like, say, near Disney World? I don't want to be in Disney World. So, yes, we do have all the tools to recommend an area for, different families and their different niches. Over the years, I've learned something. Not everybody's going to lay on a beach. There have been honeymooners that have wanted to sightsee. There are honeymooners that want to go to Alaska. So, yeah, I have to broaden the horizons of that.
Okay, and you cater to corporate, people for leisure vacation, as well as groups?
Yes. Any type of travel, we are adverse, and we were a very big corporate agency from about 1980 to 2000, and because of what's happened with the internet, we've had to reinvent Venus Travel a couple times and develop niches to just stay alive in this new technology world, because if you have to wait for the LoCascios to come into the Belmont office.
You're waiting a long time.
You're waiting a long time, Vince. I haven't seen you yet. No, but you're waiting a long time.
Yeah. And I say this with any family business like yourself that has catered to generations. I'm sure that there are people that your father's age that booked with him, and now his kids and his grandkids are coming to you.
Right.
It's got to be the case.
It's been an unbelievable thing, because I love to hear the stories about my father. And they'll come in and they go, your father did my first income tax 1951. We have a client like that. Or your father sent me on my honeymoon in 1955. And then I get stories where your father sent me on my second honeymoon in 1969.
And my third.
Yeah, my third, yeah. But no, it's great to still have that rapport with a lot of the clients. And I'm just really happy and proud how my father got this thing all started off the ground from scratch,
Can you share with us about the gift card, about the kid that called you?
Yeah, it was this year. It was a great story. Met a family from South Barrington, and they had put a deposit down on a trip. And I get a call. It was Christmas Eve morning, about 9 o'clock. It's a day where normally it's not too busy. We're only open till 1 o'clock. And I had been promoting the gift certificate on our Facebook. And I get a call, and the young boy says, my mom and dad are planning a trip. Do you have a gift certificate for $1? And I says, I sure do. He goes, I will pay you the next time I see you. And I thought it was one of the greatest stories in the 45-year history of Venus Travel. So I still haven't collected on that dollar.
Well, I haven't known you that long, but you probably without a blink or without hesitation, you made him feel like he was spending $1,000.
Exactly.
Okay?
He was very happy, and I think he said thank you about 3 or 4 times that day.
Nice. Well, for the travel, VenusTravel.com
Yes.
and your Facebook and all that.
Right, and just go on to the Venus Travel, like I said, www.venustravel.com, and the Facebook page is available to everyone.
Now, what amazes me is the second career that you had all through this of your hockey, your passion of hockey.
Yes, it's been something that still lives in me, and I think about it all the time. I've stopped coaching, played for a long time, and coached for many years, and abundance of stories and
Which
teams.
started as what, as a kid?
Yeah, 7 years old.
Orange?
7 years old, and we would wait for days, not like this. This weather's been not the typical weather, but we would play ball hockey till September, starting in September till about November, and then that snow would come and you would go skate on the ponds, and you could create your own game, and you thought you were, one of the athletes here in the Chicago.
I don't know if we're on the picture yet, but that guy in the middle needs a haircut. I think.
Yeah, the guy in the middle needs the haircut, and he could use that hair right now. Yeah, goaltender at Holy Cross. That picture was taken in the 77-78 season. Played goalie my whole life. Wanted to be Tony Esposito in the worst way.
What a great goal, no pun intended, goal to have.
Oh, it was something. My dad took me to my first game in October of '69, and I saw Esposito. He played a legendary goaltender who was on his way out, Jacques Plante, and never forget the day, never forget the game. My dad spent $3 whole for standing room tickets.
That's a lot of money then.
Yes, and the memory's still with me.
But what it brought you into, like I said, I don't know how you are a busy guy, how you had all this time, but you coached as well.
Yes.
And started coaching at Holy Cross?
I was the goaltending coach at Holy Cross about a year or two after I graduated. Took a little time off after that, and then by the late 80s, early 90s, I got back into it again with a travel club called the Northwest Chargers.
And then the big one is DePaul University?
Yeah, DePaul comes about, Vincent, in between a travel. I actually was coaching a club called the CHS Cougars, which is Conenna, Hoffman, Schaumburg. And I was approached by a gentleman who's been a good friend of mine for many years, who was at his own organization, Matty Rossabillo, and he says, "How would you like to?"
An Irish guy?
No, Irish guy, a lot of vowels, but I. And he had asked me, "Would you like to take a crack at college hockey?" And I was a little skeptical at first, but I was on my way out, and I wanted to give this a shot because I really felt I could do it, and had a wonderful 2-year ride there, and I think I could have still been there if time would have permitted. But the Northwest Charger years and the Conant years were some great years.
Well, nice. Well, under your belt, you've got, what, over 600 victories?
Yes, over a period of time. I was interviewed by a guy named Russ Foreman, and Russ told me, over 600 victories, and you've coached over about 1,000 kids, and it's been a great run. I could talk all day about it.
It's a passion. Well, you love it.
Yeah.
And it shows. Just a hockey question. How does the draft work? I mean, like football and college, or basketball, they play college, and then they get drafted out of there. How does hockey work?
The hockey draft is a very difficult one, especially for a kid born in the United States. It's gotten better. We've had some great athletes here, like Chris Chelios and Eddie Olczyk, who have made it to professionalism. But normally...
Whose dad has a store, give a plug to Edmar Groceries right here in downtown Bethel.
Oh, great. Yeah. No.
And Eddie just made it to the what? The
USA Hockey Hall of Fame.
Sorry to interrupt there.
No, not a problem. Know Eddie very well. And they, if you can go to juniors and go and live with a host family, you're noticed. If you're not noticed by 15, 16 years old, this becomes the situation where you get noticed, and then eventually maybe you can make it to the AHL, which are the Chicago Wolves. They are the affiliate for the Vancouver Canucks, or the Rockford IceHogs, which are the affiliate for the Chicago Blackhawks. But that's how the draft does work, and you're noticed at a young age, and you talk about commitment. It's hockey. People think hockey is a 5-month sport. It's 365 days a year, especially now with European players and, of course, Canadian players that you're going up against. This is a huge market.
Well, all in all, I mean, your career is far from over, but what advice do you have for young kids?
Well, I think hockey's been great. It keeps you involved. It keeps you on the straight and narrow, Vince. My mom and dad gave me some great advice, and it was, tell me who you hang around with, and I'll tell you who you are. The sport really is the sport of, it's a life lesson sport. To quote the great Lombardi, winners don't quit and quitters don't win. And a guy that I've tried to emulate my whole life, Vince Lombardi. Too many Vinces in my life.
I was going to say that. Vincenzo's. Well, I think I'm out of here. Can't have enough Vincenzo's. Anyways, thanks for being on the show. I just want to talk a little bit about the show before we say goodbye here.
Yes.
Go to busyguy.co. I'm also on Facebook and YouTube. And feel free to send comments or send me an email why you should be on the show, why you're a busy guy or a busy girl. And usually the titles that shows at the end, but I don't want to forget and say thanks to everybody here that helps. Lee Denham, Jeremy, Mark and Rachel. Hold on, busy guy.
Here.
Hello. Yeah. Oh, I know I got a meeting with you. Yeah. What time is it?
I think it's about,
whatever. I'll be there in about 15 minutes. Okay, bye. Sorry about that. But to thank everybody, Mark and Rachel, Steve Knapp, Ray, Al Stash, Tonio, I hope I'm not forgetting anybody, but I got some cannolis for you here, sir.
Oh, Vince, jeez.
So, thanks for being on the show.
Yeah. You mind if I...
oh, please.
I'm particular about my cannolis. Wow. Okay. I needed this like I needed a hole in the head after the holidays.
Leave the gun, take the cannolis.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry I got to go.
Yeah.
I got a meeting. It's been great having you on the show.
Vince, this was a pleasure. And
salute to Vincenzo.
I will definitely tell my father salute from you. He respects you in the greatest way, and this has been a great night for me.
Nice. Who knows? Maybe someday we'll do it again.
I would love to. I would love to.
So where are we going to check you out? VenusTravel.com.
VenusTravel.com, www.venustravel.com. And
you still skate?
Skate, but I hear some crickets in those knees.
Yeah.
Bad left one. So
give me 5 seconds on the hockey strike. Give me 10. Go ahead.
Okay, I got 10. It's unfortunate. This happened in 2006. It's very unfortunate.
But they're going to play.
They're going to play. Money's always the future. I mean, it's been an aspect, but I have to be real quick about this.
Go Hawks.
Back in the day, this wouldn't have happened.
Later. I got to go.
All right.
The show.
You stay. I'm going to keep looking at these cannolis and dream.
Ciao.